Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. Sunday morning already. Uh, and I hope everybody's nice and warm, has had a good weekend so far. On yesterday, we kind of did some Q&A and just had what we've know is just a little family discussions, and hopefully some enlightenment comes from it. If not, we ask questions and continue going. The thing that has had us we've been discussing here lately is looking at the relationship between masculine and feminine energy, even men and women, and looking at it from our perspective, the African's perspective, but it certainly expands to all of mankind. So as we continue to uncover things in this new year, I'm still excited about the new year that we're in, and at one point I even mentioned though yesterday, I talked about sometimes just getting a little down, sometimes having a little doubt, sometimes feeling a bit overwhelmed. And we all have been there, and I appreciate the discussion, appreciate your encouragement, and we're going to use that energy to move forward. So today, as we get started, any questions or comments on yesterday or anything else that may have grabbed your attention?
Ron, this is Angela. I got a question.
Okay.
I wanted to know how does I don't know how to form the question. Let's see. It's dealing with the foods that we eat. How does that affect or can it affect us spiritually? By certain things that we eat.
Okay. Class, we have a question on the floor about the food we eat from a health perspective and a spiritual perspective. Anyone would like to answer Angela's question?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna make an attempt to answer your question, Angie. A lot of the food that we eat, or some of the food that we eat a lot of deception. And when you go to fishing, you throw your line out there in the water and you put a rubber worm on it, and you give that rubber worm life, so the fish thinks it's an active worm. So some of what we eat is based on deception. And I'm telling you all this because we talk about energy a great deal. If that fish was caught on deception, that fish did not jump in that peanut oil on his own effort. He was caught by deception. So if that fish was caught by deception based upon energy, we eat deception. So therefore, at some point in time, we gonna act a little bit like that. So, and only reason why I brought that up is a gentleman married into my daddy's side of the family, and he was maybe a 5%, and he was questioning us about y'all eating pork. And Uncle App say, you eating deception. You think that crappie jumped up there in that fishing all by itself? It was deceived. You just as bad as us, boss. And that ain't how you work your way in this here family. Hop on this spade table. So you may have to look at that. We eat deception, so therefore we will be deceptive at some time in our life. I hope that helped you, Miss Angela.
May I add something to that?
Of course.
Yes, it is.
The way food affects our body affects our mind as well. The biggest problem with food is what is put in it to preserve it and what's put in it to get you addicted to it. Everything we eat in America, sugar, salt, or salt is in it to get us addicted to it. And also, a large number of the foods we eat has dye in it. And the foods that we eat in this country cannot be exported to other countries because they will not allow it into their country because of those things. The food that we eat are foods to make us sick or to keep us sick. They are not designed to give us nutritional value. If you when you continue to eat food that is full of salt or sugar or other additives, you have a tendency to develop not only diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. But what science has found is that the reason America has the highest rate of diabetes in the world is because of what's in the food, because of the chemicals that's in the food that keeps us sick. And if your body is not functioning well, your train of thought would be different as well. Your thought patterns would be different as well. Your body has a pronounced effect on how you think and how you feel. And how you feel determines how you act. So I know it's extremely expensive to some people to naturally grow food, but that is the best route to take. Now, if you aren't able to do that, then you have the power to transpose your food, but that is up to you to do. I can't do it for you, but when you function the way you were created to function, you can do anything in terms of changing your food or making your food more healthy. The food that the fast food eaters are people who are overweight, diabetic, and sick all the time. So when we look at from the 70s to today, you will see bodies are different, and that's because the more the increase was in putting chemicals in food, the more our body shapes change and the more our health changes for the worse. I hope that helps. Thank you.
I can add to that, Pastor. Good morning. This is Audrey. In addition to what Pastor was saying about the chemicals and in processed foods, really, the salt, the sugar, the nitrites, all of the other chemicals, the dyes, in addition to them being just unhealthy for you in general, those things, if you're under stress or experiencing trauma or whatever, like we all do and have done living in America, those things, that stress and trauma creates free radicals in your body. And if you've got these other chemicals in your body too, that can be a cause. That is what causes you to get sick. And the free radicals can also be cancer causing. So it's kind of a big deal. If you're under a lot of stress and you're also getting all of these chemicals from processed foods, fast foods, and all of that, it can have a real detrimental effect on your body. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have another question along those lines. I've been reading a lot about you know, a vegan diet as opposed to, you know, a number of, you know, eating meat and all that, and animal products. And all the studies I've seen or read and all the books I've read seem to point to that being a healthier choice. Is there something about us eating animals, maybe even spiritually, that eating plants points to a better outcome? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Good question. Because while you guys were talking, I was thinking too, maybe we should have a day that we discuss this if somebody already has done some research on dieting and the best foods to eat. Might be a good time to take a day and just do that. Talk about what foods are out there and what's some healthier choices. Well, good question. Anybody want to address Rainia's question about eating meat versus a vegan diet or any type of diet other than what we are offered or what the public is offered from the grocery stores?
Well, one thing
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know how to really. I don't know whether I am able to respond to her question. However, Dr. Sobey said that the main problem that we have is mucus, inflammation. You get the inflammation out of your body, and you get all of the diseases out of your body as well. Now, that has been proven to be true. As far as the vegan diet versus a diet where you include meat, vegan diets have been proven to be extremely healthy. People who do vegan diets don't eat enough protein. Don't get enough protein because of most people do that, but has not done research to know how to maintain it. Now, I know we have nutritionists aboard. I don't want to. I'm not going to say who that nutritionist is. However, if you choose to address that, please do. If not, then maybe you could do it later on, when we set aside the time to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it would be
one.
Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, George.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we really do need to explore as it relates to this topic, just because you eat healthy, I mean, you eat healthy, you eat rutabagas, you eat asparagus, that does not mean healthy food makes you healthy. Because there are some people who eat chitlins, hog maws, yet they live a healthy life and their blood pressure is far better than the individual who eats healthy. So we really have to examine, my blood pressure is better than Monique's. Yet I cuss. Newports. I buy ball tickets. I gamble. Monique don't cuss. Monique has the tonality that your ears or some of your ears love. Always answer questions correctly. We have to look at eating healthy food will not make you healthy if you're not a healthy person.
Well, a lot of it is heredity too, George. Heredity plays a role in that.
Okay, Ron, I do believe some of that. We ain't gonna base everything on hereditary. Can we base some things on hereditary? Of course we can. So with me having good blood pressure, you can trace that all the way back to K-Blon. Everyone that made me had good blood pressure. Can't do that. You cannot base that. Some of it is hereditary. I would agree. Not all of it. I can take a person who has a good attitude, a person with a good attitude about life, get better miles to the gallon in their vehicle, more so than a person who has a poor attitude. It's based on how we maneuver. You got to factor that in. Healthy food does not make you healthy. And unhealthy food doesn't.
Okay.
All right, Reverend Richard, my bad.
You've already told us that that healthy food does not make you healthy unless you have a healthy attitude. My strong suggestion is that we table this until we can get someone to do some more research on it, or get someone to prepare for a discussion on this who has more understanding of it than we do. I'm not that person who's going to delve deeply into a topic that I don't clearly understand. However, I do agree that if you don't have a healthy attitude, it will have an adverse effect on your life. There's no doubt about that at all. But to Andrew's question, it was meat versus a vegan diet. I think it was Randy's question, but meat does make you sleep. Does do that.
Pastor, may I add one thing to that, please?
Yes, we table that until we get some professional, not necessarily professional, but get some more in-depth research. Thank you.
May I add one thing to that, Ron?
Of course. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. This is Kathy. To answer Rainier's question, the reason our bodies tolerate a vegan diet better than meat and protein is because when it goes through the metabolic process of breaking food down in the gut, meat protein is harder for our bodies to digest, and any excess fat that's left in our bloodstream from the meat product will attach itself to the cell walls and to all of those things, and then you have cholesterol problems and all of these other things. However, when a vegetable or plant-based diet goes through the metabolic system in our bodies, the nutrients are extracted from that and passed through our bodies in the manner that it's supposed to. Same thing with starches. If we eat white potatoes, sugar, all of that, white potatoes or white bread or all of those things, when it hits the metabolic process in the body, it turns to sugar. And of course, it starts attaching itself to the cell wall lining and doing all of the damaging things that goes on in the body. So basically, that's the answer to that question, that it is harder for the body to digest and to metabolize meat products as opposed to plant-based products. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy, can I ask a follow-up question to that? Well, I remember when I moved out to California, I mean, it's probably about 20 years now. Anyway, I read this book about this Buddhist person who talked about some of those aspects of it, but also the aspects of how we keep the animals that we, slaughter to eat, and how that, it almost goes back to a little bit of what George was talking about with the fishing, but how we keep them in life and then slaughter them and then eat them.
Right, that trauma is absorbed into the body too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you're exactly right, but I recently got a nutrition degree and was studying these things, and so that's why I wanted to add that input. It is just the makeup of the body and how our body is made. We were not designed to eat a great amount of meat. We were designed to live on the vegetables and plant-based things, and you're right, the trauma that animal experiences and how it's caged or uncaged, cage-free or whatever, like a chicken that's in a coop as opposed to free-range chicken and all of that, that trauma is in that animal. And so I do agree with that, that part of what George was saying. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir.
Angela, any follow-ups? Are you okay with what was said?
Yeah, I'm okay with what was said. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Rainier, thank you for your follow-up questions. Anyone else?
Ron, this is Valerie. It's funny that I think Audrey brought that up about the vegan because I had just finished watching something on Netflix that says what you eat, and the study was done with identical twins, where they would give one twin a vegan diet and they would give another twin kind of like an omnivore. They call it something like an omnivore diet. But yeah, just check that out.
Yeah, I think we're onto something here, and I think it would be, again, nothing we talk about is just come up out of the blue. So maybe it is time we address this. And if you guys want to let us know, and we can do that. Set aside a time and see if Kathy can do a Q&A for us and kind of talk about this, kind of enlighten everybody. Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
This is Charles. I have one question. It's not on what we was talking about right now. My question is, when these things come on TV and other places about where you go when you die, you go to heaven, or do you know that you're going to heaven? Now, you can correct me, family. It's when Jesus was on the cross and he told the thief on the cross, you will be with me this day in paradise. He didn't say nothing about you going to heaven or you going somewhere else. I'm thinking when he said paradise, he was talking about the garden or back to the place that we started or where we came from. There's nothing saying that you're going to go to heaven.
You're absolutely right, Charles. Would someone like to address that, Charles's question?
Charles, paradise means a place of repose. But quite simply, it means a place of pleasure, a place where you are comfortable, comforted, free of the traumas that we have endured in this life. I was talking to one of my daughters yesterday, and she was telling me about this friend of hers who lives in Texas, who is being taught by a Nigerian priest. And the Nigerian priest, one of the things that she brought to me that he said is, don't, when you leave this body, there is no heaven and hell as described. Only heaven and hell in this earth. When you go back to the light, that's what we have been teaching for years. And what we did not understand, I do believe, or even recognize, is that we have been talking about the life and death, life after death, in the same manner that the priest of Babylon speaks of it. So I do believe that there more people are beginning to search for that particular truth, because that also came up in the class last Monday that I was asked to teach after I had gotten off of our class. So I do believe that is there is a huge search for the understanding of that truth. I'm done. Thank you. I hope that helps.
Yes, sir. That helped a whole lot.
The other part of that, Charles, is something Pastor addressed last week, week before last, those commercials or those ads that we see is the desperation of the church trying to get people back in the pews. So that's, do you not know where you're going if you died? That's what kind of sparks that kind of thing. So that's what that's all about. That's why we're seeing,
And that's what got me looking.
I'm
You know,
sorry.
like I said, that's what looking at it. And what I've, found of it, that you ain't gonna die and go no heaven.
Yeah, it's confusing, and that's unfortunate. You good?
Yes, sir. I'm good. I appreciate the family.
Right. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate your question, man. Anyone else? Any questions or comments?
This is Angela. I got another question. A question of what Charles was just asked. Now, when they talk about the light, and they say you return to the light, we've been taught that this light is a bright light that you go through. Because I recently seen something where somebody's supposed to have a near-death experience, and they were saying, don't go. They say the white light, don't go towards the white light, go towards the other light, because something is deceiving the white light. But we've been taught that this is a white light, and most people that I've seen or have talked to, they say something about a white light. So that's what I just need clarity on this white light. It's supposed to be a bright light.
I never seen the light. However, I am light in that regard, what you're talking about. But I will say this. Just embrace the reality that we become one with the light that we came from. That's the reality we embrace. The thing that we don't embrace is that we go shake hands with Jesus, and we go sit down with our grandmama and tell all about our troubles on the side. That's the part that we just leave that alone, because that's not going to happen. It's never been real. It's not real now. And keep our mind focused on the reality of we make our own heaven and our own hell in this earth by the decisions we make. Thank you. And I hope that helps you, Andrew.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good start. Anyone else? Any questions or comments?
Right. This is Charles again.
Hey, Charles.
Question for Angela. When my life and death experience, it was a bright light. And I mean, it's like right here was very bright. And before that, the bright light, this was during that time when I had the accident, it was a bright light surrounding me. And the cop said he saw the same light when he came up through there to find me. But anyway, making a long story short, during that time, I was like on this side and I was on the other side. I was teetering between both parts. Mm-hmm. The main thing of that, I felt so calm. I felt peace. I felt serenity. I didn't feel no weight on me anymore. If you can understand what I'm trying to say, I was in a place where everything was like you in this earth right here, like I say, you're going through hell, you're going through a lot of pressure. I was in a place there was no pressure. Nothing like that. That means I could have went on or stay here. You still got that choice. And God have the choice with you in that process. And I know something else here for me. I don't know what it is, but I'm still striving to know and find out. And like I said, I mean, that type light, I ain't never seen it on earth nowhere in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Charles, don't
Yes,
forget
sir.
that you were in that field. You were in that field. There was no battery in your car. You were too far from the road for anybody to see you. It was at night. There were no lights, and that patrolman stopped because he saw that light in that field. And there was no battery in your car, so there was no light coming from your car. So the light that both of you saw had to be divine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I always include that because there are people who would say, well, it was the light from his car. No, it wasn't. It was because there was no battery in the car. The car was junk.
Nope.
Thank you.
Because my car was so mangled. I mean, the way my car hit them trees and stuff, if it didn't throw me out, wearing seatbelt now, if it didn't throw me out with the, in the car, and the way the car, landed up on me, this engine was in my front seat. That means it crushed all that. My car was like it was crushed by a crusher. And like Pastor said, I mean, when they always were telling me you was healthy and stuff. I seen some people had accidents that were helping and I was killed them. So during that time I was out there, I thought it was a trailer. It was a trailer not too far from my accident, but people didn't stay in it no more. Because I was hollering for help, 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 help. And I got so exhausted hollering for help, I started talking to God. I started talking to my Creator. I said, please send someone my way. And when that light was around me, I mean, I was out there busting to all up. That means all my blood was out. Because once they got me and put me in the ambulance, they were supposed to be encouraging to you. But they told me before we get into the hospital, he's dead already because all his blood's out there. When they took me to the hospital, they couldn't find no blood, nothing like that. And they called the family in, they talked my wife in and said he ain't gonna be here no much longer. I was hearing everything, but I couldn't see no one. I just know their voices. I know them through their voices because I couldn't see anything. My eyes couldn't focus on anything because it was so bright. And I went, they told my wife that the only one can fix him is up in Charleston. And she didn't know about Charleston. She said, I only one knew about places like that is the one laying over there. And then they were asking, doctors, send him in Spartanburg, but doctors in there told me, we don't have a facility to fix him, put him back together. So they finally told her, the only place I know doctors come from all over the world is up in Charlotte. And she just had two places and that was it. So they airlifted me from Gaffney Hospital to Charlotte. I kept trying to sleep, but this lady was telling me, no, you can't do that. You can go in the bus and die in your sleep. I was like, oh, woman, let me sleep. And it wasn't me talking. It was the Spirit of God in me. It was the Spirit that God had put in me. Know Him was doing all the talking. And once we got to the hospital, I was in the operating room for 18, 19 hours straight. And before we got there, God had told me, you are healed, but man gonna have to put you back together. So I held on to that. No matter who came in there and told me different, I held on to that. And so, long story short, I didn't stay in the hospital long. They were looking at me to stay in the hospital a couple of years, but I was out in three or 4 months, and that surprised the doctors. And there was a lot more, intel in this during that time I was in the hospital, but I'm gonna, let you have that much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for sharing.
You're
welcome. That's beautiful story, very personal. There's a lot in there. One of the things I took out of what you said is you held on to what your spirit spoke to you. And maybe that's a message to us.
Now on that, Ron,
yeah,
I held on what I was taught.
Yes.
If I was taught anything else different than what God was teaching us, I would have lost it out there in the field. I would have made it. So teaching and learning about things, learning about the Spirit of God and all that you can have in with Him. Hey, I'm a believer.
Yeah, good morning, Ron. And everybody that's on the call. This is George from Philly.
Morning, George.
When we started the session, we were talking about, again, eating healthy, etc. But what moves me when I hear Charles speak in the scriptures in 1 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, it talks about the body is the Lord's. And in 1 Corinthians 6th chapter, verse 19, it says, "Oh, do you not know your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have heard from God, and that you are not your own?" And I think that resonates with me to a certain extent in terms of what Charles is saying, because it's not about the body, but it's about his spirit. And just to be able to appreciate that God blessed us with this vessel that we live in, but his spirit is what sustains him. His spirit is the creator, that he is, just having, again, this human experience. So again, I appreciate, just being able to look at it in terms of taking care of our temples and being more conscientious about how we can, as you say earlier, learn more, that we can appreciate the journey that we're on. So I just wanted to share those thoughts. But thank you, for the conversation thus far, everybody. I'm done.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George. What I thought, what it came to my mind when George was talking. When the scripture says that the life is in the blood. What does that look like? And that has intrigued me for quite some time. And I wanted to know the relationship between water and blood, since Jesus changed water into wine. What relationship does blood have with that water? And what I was shown is the blood is a reminder of the unicity that we have with our Creator. The water speaks to the Spirit. It is a physical representation, not just manifestation, or representation of Spirit. And the blood is what it takes to stay in this body. It must circulate. It must move around. So, and the water and the blood are intertwined to the extent that it cannot separate it. Even when you do it through a centrifuge to separate it, there is still water present as well as the proteins that makes it red. The other thing is, of course, there's much more in your blood than hemoglobin. The other thing is, this water being a manifestation of spirit, then that speaks volume to who we are. Because there are some who say that 97% of our body is water. And it is definitely in the 90s, but what exact number I don't remember. If 97% of our body is water, and water is a representation of spirit, then that is a message to us to remind us that we are spirit indeed. Only 3% of us is material. So this material world, we are made up of only 3% of this material world and 97% spiritual. So if we look at it from that perspective, then it will be, I think, much easier to wrap our minds around the reality that we are indeed Elohim. Any questions or comments about that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Thank you.
I understand what you're saying, Rev, because when I was telling you, I had lost all my blood, probably out there in the field, because when they had me at the hospital, they were checking me. They couldn't get no blood count. So that's when I tell you, it had to be the spirit talking through me, telling them what I told them. So I do understand what you just said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Is there any?
I have a question. And it's kind of left field, but I'll ask it anyway. Charles was saying he had lost a lot of blood. And Pastor, you were saying the life is in the blood and the water is spirit. Could that light have been his energy, spirit, connecting to sort of becoming one with that of the universe?
Exactly. I do believe that it was not a God that separated from us. It was the God who we are. It was the energy that we are. That was that they was being seen by Trovan and Charles. I do believe that it's the same energy, yes, of him, not an external being as we think it is. Make sense, Audrey?
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, it's not in their field at all. Thanks.
And another thing, I wasn't taught all what we know now then, that I was taught enough.
Ron?
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Okay. We have been going about 50 minutes now, and I had something that I was looking at that I thought was very interesting, and you guys are all over it today as we were talking. A while back in the 14th chapter of Matthew, Charles asked a question about Jesus walking on water. And actually, I've been sort of looking at the verses that come before that ever since we've talked about that. And it kind of takes me down a rabbit hole a little bit, trying to gain understanding of it. And there's part of it I want to talk about today, or not necessarily from these verses, but part of it. And let me flip through here and see something. And I'm just going, because we don't have to sake of time, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this today. But Pastor said something that moved me to look at this again. I want to get a better understanding of it.
Can I just say something while you're looking?
Yes, ma'am.
What you're looking on. It makes me think about talking about Jesus walking on water. It makes me think back to what Charles was saying about when he felt, you know how we always say we have the weight of the world on us.
Yeah.
When we have troubles and concerns and schedules and timelines and all of that. How Charles was saying, he felt like he was in a place where he had none of that, none of that weight of the world. He was serene, he was calm. And I think that's the place that Jesus would come from, right? He has no weight. He has no, he has nothing that weighs him down. So from that perspective, I think that is how he and we can walk on water.
Yeah.
We let go of all those things
Mm-hmm.
and just trust in what we know.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And I want to read this, Audrey, and then look at what you said. It says, starting in verse 13 in chapter 14 of Matthew, it says, now when Jesus heard it, he withdrew. What did he hear? This is the first 12 verses are talking about what happened to John the Baptist. Which is another thing that I still don't quite get yet. The damsel or the young girl wanting having his head on a platter. I hadn't seen that yet, and maybe somebody else does and won't explain it, how it ties together. But when Jesus heard it, he withdrew from there in a boat to a lonely place by himself. And when the multitude heard of this, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when he went ashore, he saw a great multitude and felt compassion for them and healed their sick. What I'm hoping to see in this, what I'm talking about here is, if he does not get in this boat, does he ever walk on water? Does he ever walk on water? Burdens. Look at the role that the disciples play. Jesus does not feed the 5,000. The disciples do. So I want to look in this, but here's the part that also caught my eye. What made him get into a boat and it made me look at water. I want to read a couple of verses to you, and I want to just mention it for you. Genesis chapter 1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was formless and void, and darkness over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters." That's Genesis 1 and 2. And then in Revelations chapter 21, verse 1, and says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there was no more sea," S-E-A, no more sea. So what takes place with the water from Genesis to Revelation? Why is there not a need for a sea? Why is there not a need for the ocean, for this type of water? It didn't say there's no more rivers. It says there's no more seas. So something takes place. What does the sea represent? The pastor talked about it. And Audrey just mentioned it too, when she talked about the burdens. So what is it that we get from the water? And what is the transformation that takes place with Jesus here that allows him to walk on water? That's the thing that I looked at, or trying to look at, and kind of search for answers. I looked at some of the encounters that he has with water in the earth. In Genesis, we've talked about before, the water represents spirituality. It is a mystery. It is life itself. It represents darkness. It represents chaos, but it is also up to the human to bring enlightenment to that chaos, to open things up, to have live this life the way we're intended to live it. And the mystery of that is represented there. We talk about when he turned water into wine, and all of this being talked about as being life. The water represent this physical or this human life in this episode anyway, that is a measurement. It is a measurement, and the pail represents the body that this life is measured in. So the water being turned into life shows that you are more than just this body. You are more than just what you can see. When you recognize who you are, when you recognize you're a spirit, there is nothing that contains you. There is nothing that can hold you. There is no vessel that can confine you. So, and of course, there's a lot more to it than that. So you move on and look at all of these episodes that takes place, and all the healings and all the cures and all the things that Jesus did, and the people that were fed and everything. We have a tendency to separate the man, Jesus, from ourselves. But what is this is the Spirit of God, the Word of God, showing each and every one of us, showing Charles, showing Audrey, showing Ron, showing George, showing everybody how to ease your burdens and how to loosen these things. Charles mentioned a lot of stuff, but that was personal. That was for Charles. Charles mentioned the thing he was holding on to was his teaching, where he was, and where Charles was enabled him to see the Lord and talk to God and be saved. And that was a personal thing. That would probably be different for each and every one of us, that episode, is what I'm saying. So all the miracles represents or whatever you need, whatever I need, for us to see who we are. And what happens to John the Baptist, who he knew personally, who was actually related to him, this thing takes place, and it sounds like that it troubled him. It says that he had to, but the thing that got me was, why does he get into a boat? Was he not able to walk on water at that point? So as we see in life and in the scriptures, one thing brings about another. If this doesn't happen to John the Baptist, does he ever walk on water? If this doesn't happen to John the Baptist, does the 5,000 get fed? If this doesn't happen to John the Baptist, does Peter have an opportunity to step outside of the boat? So if these things don't happen, if there was not a group of people followed by a preacher who saw truth and enlightenment and decided to chase the light, follow the light that he saw, and that changed his life and caused others to believe and follow him. Does any of these things happen? Would any of us be here? Would the episodes in our lives that has moved us to this place have ever have happened? Would there have been a pandemic? Would there have been an opportunity to bring all of us together? So when you follow the light, when you move in that direction, one thing happens after another to build you, to shape you, to open your eyes and show you who you are. So when you look at this, any questions so far? Anybody?
Ron,
Well,
ask Angela, did that help her or what we're talking about the light?
Okay, Angela?
it did. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was going to ask a question. You talking about the boat. Do we look at the way it came to me was the boat. You can look at the boat as our physical body, and the water as our spirit, telling us that we are not our bodies, but we are spirit. So when we step in the water, or we not physical water, but the water represents the spirituality, which has memory, and that's just what came to me. I was just saying.
Yeah, that's what I see too, Angela. I think the water represents a part of us that we are to discover, a part of us. One of the teachers, rabbis, if you will, that you hear me talk about a lot, not Douglas Klotz, but the other guy, Benner. Benner talks about the water in the Hebrew, and he said a lot of it, it was mysterious. It was a place, a source that they could not avoid because of the fish. So they had to fish to live, to survive, but it was a mystery. It was something that brought about fear. It was something that they had a great deal of respect for, but they had a love relationship with the water because of its necessity, and they had a great respect for it, but it was a fear there. It was a mystery there. So you tie all that together, and as you said, there is a thing to this spiritual life that we fear. We fear death. We don't know what happens after this, and as Charles asked the question about heaven and hell, people use fear to bring people to the church. So the mystery of it, I am the Lord thy God, I created heaven and hell, the good and evil, light and darkness. We use fear. We use chaos to bring people into the churches. But what is this really saying? What is the significance of the water in the scriptures? Okay, anyone else?
Ron, this is Mary. I have a thought. I don't know if but this is what I'm seeing and feeling. When Jesus heard about John the Baptist, the human side of him, just a thought, is his human side took hold of that, and getting in the boat, crossing the water, and seeing the people brought him back to the God he was. Because at that time, he kind of lost focus. And once he got in there and the water calmed him, he saw the people, then he remembered his mission and he was back on track. Just a thought. What you think?
I think you're right on target. I think it's twofold though, Mary. I think it's without and within. What do I mean by that? You're exactly right. When he saw the people, he started this transformation. It helped him to see who he was. The within part is I look at where I have been the last couple of days. And listening to what was said yesterday in the talk, it allowed me to go off to myself and think. So the multitude in me, those voices, all those thoughts, those that, oppressing voices, those voices of doubt, those voices of frustration, those voices that keep telling me, when is this thing going to change? Those voices are seeing that, that takes me to a place when I see another Black man shot for knocking on the wrong door again. When is this ever going to stop? All those voices were quieted. All those voices, the healing is not being that I had leprosy or not leprosy, does not mean that I'm crippled in a physical way. It does not mean that I have a dying disease. It means that all those things that stand against righteousness and me seeing clarity into who I am and recognizing that. And as Audrey talked about, easing those burdens inside of me, all of those are removed. So those members from the outside looking in, from the outside, yeah, it opens you up when somebody comes to you, for each and every one of them, and say, I have a problem. I have a problem, Mary, I'd like to talk to you about. It takes you to a place inside of yourself. But it also takes you to a place where you see a different side of Mary and allows you to be enlightened. So I don't see Jesus as a prophet anymore. I don't see him as a separation. I see him as the light that Charles talked about, as the light that everybody's talked about on this phone, that is inside of each and every one of us, that moves us to a place. I see that as the catalyst inside of us that helps us to see who we are. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Can I take you back a moment?
Of course.
Back to when he fed 5,000.
What part, Pastor?
When he fed the 5,000.
Okay.
But that section, did you not read from there?
I didn't get that far. I just read the first 2 verses. But go ahead.
Okay. When he fed the 5,000, what does that mean? The disciples were the ones who fed folks. And you said that earlier. You said that Jesus had blessed them. That was in the earlier conversation. And only the disciples served the food. The deeper meaning of that I see is this. The disciples are the teachers. And Jesus blessed the food. And the food that they fed the people with was more than what they needed. That food represents what we are to teach. What do I mean? Jesus is saying to us, you will have more than you need to teach. I'll see to that. What they were to teach was what Jesus had taught them. And what we are to teach is what Jesus taught us. And that's why he had to bless it, meaning that the energy that Jesus put out there with what he taught is the food, the spiritual food that we are to feed to those who we teach, and that spiritual food that we are feeding the people. Jesus is saying, don't worry about not having enough. It will multiply as you feed them. And even when you finish feeding them, you will have some left over. That's how I see that. So we don't have to be concerned so much about what's next or what are we going to teach, because Jesus has already shown us through this example who we are and how we are to proceed as teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comment on what Pastor said?
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Through the time I was in that hospital and my spirit is so sensitive, I understand when Reb said, I feel it now, people. Whatever you need or whatever, ask me. I understand what he was saying, definitely. Because I was like that in the hospital, and I had people from all different denominations coming to my room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, no preacher, nothing like that right there. Why did they come asking me questions? But I was answering their questions. And so much of that, it was a guy from, it was a Jehovah's Witness in there. He was trying to force his religion on the people. And those people came to me. I talked to them just like I'm talking to y'all right now. And I was using some words in the Bible, but I wasn't using the way a person that was trying to beat you over the head with the word. And that's what the Jehovah's Witness guy was doing. And they were scared to be around him. But
yeah,
making it all short, it doesn't, this big tall woman, she was every bit of 7 foot tall. And I had this lady, she was teaching me, and what she was teaching me, when I had head trauma, I didn't remember a lot of stuff. So she was bringing me back to a remembrance of things. But this big tall woman, she came in and said, you're going to be with me. And my spirit picked up on her. She ain't the right person. I said, no, I'm not going to be with you. I'm staying where I'm at. That lady tried everything she could for she to be with me, to do what this other lady was doing. I didn't have no vibes from her for her to do this. So I didn't even tell that lady what that lady was trying to do. She already knew. Yeah. So what I'm saying, when you get that state, I don't care how you get to that state, your spirit's so sensitive. Anyone come to you with a wrong vibe or something like that, you knows it. And you know how to answer the people's questions. And I mean, I didn't understand what was going on until now.
Yeah.
So I understand what they say when I feel it.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. I want to.
Hey, Ron, I wanted to get that in, Ron.
Yes, sir.
Before we got off, you said that we weren't going to be on this that long. But I wanted to get it in because sometimes people take teachers for granted.
Yeah.
And they feel like they can do it too. And maybe you can. But do you see what the people need? Or you feeding them bread when they need collard greens? We've been down this road before. The value of measures, and I don't talk about that often, but I feel the need to say this. The value of a teacher cannot be measured, and regardless of how much you try to emulate a teacher, you cannot do it. When Jesus was crucified, when Jesus was crucified, they tried to replace Judas with Matthew. They voted on it. And you never heard from Matthew since. Why? Because Matthew was not chosen to be a teacher. The people tried to force him to be a teacher. The Ethiopian eunuch said, how can I understand unless I have someone teach me? And so regardless of the effort that's put in, you can only be a teacher of the scriptures if you have been chosen to do that. It's just that simple. Yes, it is complex also. And ending by saying that is one of the major reasons I respect teaching so much, because I know that I cannot be fed what I need if there is no teacher to guide me. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another point I want to make based on something that Pastor and Charles have said, because Charles made a good example of it and Pastor's already explained it. Physically, we see ourselves. I see Audrey, and I see all these symbols on my screen that tells me with phone numbers on them that there are a number of other people on this line. But in reality, the most important part of us is the energy of our voices, our words, our thoughts, and all of us being together when we're on this line. The rest of it doesn't matter. The rest of it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much money you don't have, where you live. All of it, all that matters is your energy, your spirit is searching for truth. That's it. I remember the last time we went to Philly, pastoring the teachers, and I remember getting on the plane, and I'm not usually fearful on a plane, but I always am very cognizant of the takeoff for some reason. But for some reason, I was a little apprehensive that day. And we end up staying on the tarmac for quite a long time. I don't know if, I can't remember if there were issues with other planes or we were that backed up. I don't remember what it was. But we end up staying on the tarmac.
Storm.
It was a storm, okay. And for some reason, something bothered me about us taking off. Little did I know when we all got to where it got in Philly, we sat down and talked. Everybody felt the same thing. Everybody felt the same energy. And that was no coincidence. So I say that to say the disciples were not 12 men. They were one. The 12 represents that energy in you, that part of you, when you all line up. Charles said something. He said, when I laid there and I knew, and when I was in the hospital, I could hear those voices, I was at peace. It didn't bother me. His disciples lined up. In other words, every part of him, you go back to the 12 tribes, you go back to you know how many times 12 represented in the scriptures. You go back to all of that. It is saying every part of your humanity lined up and became one. That Jesus says, and it says here when the evening comes. In other words, it's about to be dark. The enlightenment is ending. His teaching is about to be over. The enlightenment is about to be over in this evening time. So the disciples start to feel anxiety. And they come to him and they say, this is an empty place. It's a desolate place. This is spiritual. This isn't talking about the land. The land, remember, Hebrew is talking about consciousness. So pull all this together. So what they're saying is we have to feed these people. Jesus said, no, you gonna do it. What do you have with you? Bring it to me and let me bless it. Let the enlightenment, trust the enlightenment that you are. You're not here just to be in church. You didn't leave your family home and come out here in this place just for no reason at all. You are following something. And what you're following is the light in the field. You're following that light that is inside of you. And when you follow that light that is inside of you, it all comes together. There are times in every one of our lives that we've said, you know what? I feel awesome today. I wish I could stay in this place. I feel good. I feel good. All of me lines up. Every part of me is on the same page. And I breathe, I inhale. I love where I am. The lesson we had today may have done it. It may have been something else in your life that did it. But you reach a point where everything lines up and you are in that place. You are in that place of paradise. You're in that place of peace and compassion. And that's what is taking place here. So he says, bring that to me. And Pastor explained the rest. Pastor explained the rest if you pull all that together. But all of that takes place to show you, as Audrey said in the beginning, that you too can walk on water. This thing does not have to be a mystery to us. It does not have to be something that we're fearful of. It is not to be something that is in danger. And even, I remind myself when all of my pieces don't line up, Ron, somebody might get shot again tomorrow. Somebody might drop a bomb somewhere else tomorrow, but just breathe. Just know who you are. Just breathe and know that every one of these numbers I see on this phone are a part of me and I'm a part of you. We are one. We are one. And even when we read the scriptures, it is laid out this way so we could see the picture in our mind. But you translate what you see with your eyes to your eye. You move that thing to your eye. We are one. You breathe, you hear this, you the energy from it. And if you don't see it, ask a question so that others can see it. But that Jesus is the catalyst in you. It is the truth that is in you that is asking to speak. That started off as a whisper. And when you turned your ear to it, as Moses did, when you turn your ear to it, you could hear it clearly. But it's up to every one of us that all of us, our pieces line up. That we line up to hear it. So all of this led to the walking on the water. I like Angela's answer with the boat and Audrey's answer with the boat. The boat I don't quite see clearly yet. I do see it as the body. I also see it as man's attempt to replicate what God has done. The boat is a vessel, just like this body is a vessel. The boat is needed. But I just feel like there's something there I still don't quite see with the boat. And maybe that'll be a discussion for another time. But does this make
Ron,
sense at all?
Ron,
Yes, ma'am.
I think you just hit it. The boat is a representation of the body itself, and it's what allows us to move and be in this realm. But what it's saying also is that the spirit, which the boat rests upon, the water, is much more than the boat itself. And that when you are dealing with things from your spiritual essence, you don't have to worry about the physical boat itself. You can walk. You can you walk above any physical circumstance. And so what you think is the boat that carries you and provides stability in the water, the reality is you don't need that boat necessarily. The Spirit is who you really are, and you and that's what it speaks to me as. We're so much more than the boat itself.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That makes perfectly good sense. That makes perfectly good sense. Thank you. Thank you. We are one, y'all. We are one. Beautifully said. And that kind of ties it all together. Any question? This seems like a good place to take a rest, take a pause. Any questions before we go though? Questions or comments? Thank you. Thank you for your questions, your comments. Angela, for your opening us up with a question. Charles, thank you for sharing with us your personal story. It opened up a lot to us. Pastor, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we?
No, not really. Just thank you guys.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you guys. Again, as Pastor said, enjoy the rest of your day. Look forward to tomorrow. Have a good day.
Take care,
Thank you,
family.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.